Have you ever stopped to ask yourself where your thoughts actually come from? Not the voice you hear inside your mind, not the opinions you express, but the origin of them. Because most people move through life believing something very simple, that the thoughts inside their mind belong entirely to them, their ideas, their beliefs, their conclusions. But if you observe the modern world carefully, something strange begins to appear. Millions of people reacting to the same events with the same emotions, the same outrage, the same excitement, the same opinions, often within minutes. And yet each person believes the same thing. This is what I think. Well, what if something else is happening? Something quieter, something far more subtle. What if many of the thoughts inside the modern mind were never truly chosen? What if they were guided, slowly, carefully, through influence so subtle it feels like freedom? Because the most powerful systems shaping the human mind do not control it by force. They guide it quietly, patiently, almost invisibly. And over time, the mind begins to believe it is thinking independently, when in reality it is simply moving through ideas placed carefully before it. If this is true, there are signs, small signals that reveal when the mind is no longer thinking freely. 10 quiet indicators that influence has already entered the mind. And once you begin to notice them, they become impossible to ignore. The first sign is speed. You react before you think. A headline appears, a short video plays, a message flashes across a screen, and within seconds, the mind reacts. Anger, approval, judgment. But true thinking is slow. It requires pause, observation, distance. When reactions appear instantly, they rarely belong to deep thought. They belong to emotional triggers, signals designed to move the mind before it has time to question anything. The second sign appears in the way ideas are repeated. Many people hold strong opinions, yet when asked a simple question, "Why do you believe that?" silence often follows. Because the belief was never examined. It was repeated, heard many times, seen many times, shared many times, until it began to feel like truth, not because it was proven, but because it became familiar. And familiarity slowly turns into belief. The third sign is emotional intensity without understanding. People become deeply angry, deeply defensive, deeply passionate about subjects they have barely explored. Emotion rises first. Understanding comes later, or sometimes never. Because influence rarely relies on knowledge, it relies on emotion. Once emotion moves the mind, thought begins to follow. The fourth sign appears in groups. Observe conversations carefully. One opinion appears. Others repeat it. Agreement spreads quickly. Soon the idea feels dominant, and many people adopt it without realizing why. Because the mind naturally seeks belonging, and belonging often feels safer than standing alone. So the mind adapts, not because the idea is true, but because it is accepted. The fifth sign is discomfort. When questioning popular beliefs, certain ideas become difficult to examine, not because they are correct, but because questioning them creates tension. The mind senses this tension and quietly chooses silence. Over time, unquestioned ideas grow stronger, not through evidence, but through protection. And once an idea becomes protected by social pressure, few people dare to question it. The sixth sign is constant consumption without reflection. The modern mind is surrounded by signals, videos, messages, headlines, opinions, stories. But consumption is not the same as understanding. When information enters continuously, the mind has no space to process it. Thoughts pile on top of each other, and eventually the mind becomes a channel for signals, not a place of reflection. The seventh sign is a strange form of exhaustion. Many people feel mentally overwhelmed, yet they do not feel wiser. Because information without reflection creates noise. The mind processes thousands of signals without reaching clarity. And influence thrives in noisy environments, because noise hides patterns. The eighth sign appears through repetition. The more often an idea appears, the more familiar it becomes. And the more familiar something feels, the more believable it appears. The mind begins to accept ideas not because they are accurate, but because they are everywhere, seen again and again and again, until questioning slowly disappears. The ninth sign is the disappearance of silence. The moment quiet appears, many people reach for stimulation, a screen, a message, a video, anything to fill the empty space. But that empty space is where independent thought begins. Without silence, the mind only echoes the world around it. The 10th sign may be the most powerful of all. The belief that influence affects everyone else, but not you. This belief creates blindness, because the mind stops looking for signals. It stops questioning narratives. It stops examining the origin of its thoughts. And influence becomes invisible. But once you begin to notice these patterns, something changes. You start seeing the repetition, the emotional triggers, the invisible forces guiding attention, and a quiet question begins to appear inside your mind. Is this truly my thought? Or is it simply the loudest signal around me? Because influence does not need permission. It only needs attention. Where attention flows, thought soon follows. Where thought goes, belief begins to grow. And where belief grows, behavior quietly changes. This is why awareness matters. Not to reject the modern world, but to see it clearly. To notice when ideas arrive already shaped, already repeated, already waiting to be believed. Because the moment you begin to question your thoughts, you reclaim something rare, your own mind. And once a person begins to see this clearly, something else becomes possible. The ability to step back, to observe, to think slowly again, and to choose which thoughts truly belong inside the mind. Because the moment you begin to see the influence, it no longer moves unnoticed. And that moment changes everything.